Pawn Stars boss Rick Harrison rejects a rare item from the Titanic as it's out of his price range. In an unforgettable episode of Pawn Stars, the hit reality TV show that follows the daily dealings at the world-famous gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas, Rick Harrison, the seasoned negotiator and co-owner, turned down what many would consider a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. A customer walked through the doors carrying a rare artifact believed to be connected to the RMS Titanic, one of history's most infamous maritime tragedies. The item, a small but intricately designed brass porthole handle, was claimed by the seller to have been recovered from the wreckage of the ship. The moment the item was placed on the counter, it drew immediate attention from both Rick Harrison and his son Corey "Big Hoss" Harrison. The brass piece, aged and tarnished with time, bore markings consistent with early 20th century manufacturing practices used aboard luxury ocean liners like the Titanic. The seller, a soft-spoken man in his late 50s, explained that the item had been passed down through his family for generations. According to him, his great-grandfather had worked for a salvage company involved in the early recovery efforts following the Titanic sinking in 1912. Rick, known for his sharp eye and cautious approach to high-value items, immediately recognized the potential significance of the object. However, he also knew that provenance and authenticity were critical factors when dealing with historical artifacts, especially ones tied to such a famous disaster. He quickly called in the shop's go-to expert, Austin "Chumley" Russell, who has occasionally dabbled in historical collectibles. Though more often than not, he's better known for his comedic antics than his expertise. After a brief examination and some back and forth between the Harrisons, Rick decided to bring in a specialist, someone with experience authenticating maritime relics. Within the hour, a local historian specializing in naval archaeology arrived at the pawn shop, greeted by the usual chaos of haggling customers and ringing phones. After carefully inspecting the porthole handle, the expert confirmed that the design and materials were indeed consistent with those used on the Titanic. More importantly, the serial numbers etched into the brass matched records from Harland and Wolff, the Belfast-based shipbuilder responsible for constructing the ill-fated vessel. With the authentication confirmed, the tension in the room shifted. Rick, usually calm and composed, began pacing behind the counter. He knew they were dealing with something extremely valuable, not just monetarily, but historically and emotionally. The Titanic still captivates the public imagination over a century after its tragic maiden voyage, and any genuine artifact from the ship commands astronomical prices in the collector's market. The seller, clearly aware of the item's potential worth, asked for $300,000 in exchange for the porthole handle. He acknowledged that the price was steep, but emphasized the rarity and emotional weight of owning a tangible piece of history. Rick listened intently, nodding along but visibly calculating the risk involved. After a long pause, Rick finally responded, "Look, I believe you. I believe this is real. And if I could afford it, I'd buy it in a heartbeat. But this is way out of my price range." It was a rare moment for the seasoned pawnbroker, who has handled everything from Civil War-era weapons to rare coins and celebrity memorabilia. For the first time in recent memory, Rick admitted defeat not because of doubt or deception, but because of sheer financial limitation. The shop simply couldn't justify spending that kind of money on a single item, no matter how historic or rare it was. Corey tried to negotiate the price down, offering $150,000 up front, with the possibility of additional payments contingent on future sales. But the seller stood firm. He wasn't interested in partial deals or consignment agreements. He wanted a clean sale, and he knew he had leverage. As the conversation wound down, Rick offered a handshake and a word of appreciation. "You've got something special," he said, I hope you find the right buyer." The seller nodded respectfully and left the shop, the brass handle tucked safely back in its velvet-lined case. For viewers at home, the segment was a powerful reminder of the emotional and historical value that can walk through the door of the gold and silver pawn shop. While the show often features quirky characters and bizarre items, moments like these elevate Pawn Stars beyond entertainment and into the realm of cultural storytelling. Behind the scenes, the decision to turn down the artifact was not made lightly. Rick later explained in a follow-up interview that while the Titanic relic was fascinating, purchasing it would have meant tying up a significant portion of the shop's liquidity for months, potentially jeopardizing their ability to make other deals. "We're in the business of buying and selling," he said. "If we spend $300,000 on something like that, we're basically putting the brakes on the whole operation. That's not fair to our team or our regular customers." Still, the rejection didn't sit well with everyone. Fans took to social media to express disappointment, with some suggesting that the Harrisons missed a golden opportunity. Others praised Rick's pragmatism, noting that even if the shop had bought the item, there was no guarantee it could be resold quickly at a profit. Collectors of maritime history are a niche group, and while interest in the Titanic remains strong, the market for authentic relics is limited. The story didn't end there. Several days after the failed deal, news broke that the same artifact had appeared at a private auction in New York. This time, it was accompanied by a full dossier of documentation, including underwater photographs of the Titanic wreck site where the handle was allegedly recovered, as well as letters from marine archaeologists vouching for its authenticity. Bidding started at $500,000, and within hours, the item had surpassed $1 million. Ultimately, the porthole handle sold for $1.4 million to an anonymous buyer believed to be a European museum curator. The final hammer price stunned even the most experienced auctioneers, proving just how much demand exists for genuine Titanic artifacts among elite collectors. Back in Las Vegas, Rick watched the news unfold with a mix of admiration and resignation. In a candid moment with Chumley, he reflected, "That's the thing about this job. Sometimes you see something amazing, and you just have to let it go. Not because it's not real, but because it's bigger than us." The incident sparked a broader conversation among fans and historians alike about the ethics of trading in historical artifacts. Some argued that items like the Titanic handle should be preserved in museums rather than sold to private collectors. Others countered that without private markets, many of these objects might never be discovered or properly authenticated in the first place. Regardless of where one stands on the issue, the episode highlighted the delicate balance between commerce and history that plays out daily in places like the gold and silver pawn shop. It also underscored the unpredictable nature of the pawn business, where one day's rejected item can become the next week's multidimensional headline. In the weeks following the auction, the Harrisons returned to their usual rhythm of negotiating over vintage guitars, military medals, and novelty items. But every now and then, Rick would glance at the empty spot on the counter where the Titanic handle once sat and shake his head with a wry smile. Some treasures, he knows, are simply too big to keep, and sometimes letting them go is the only smart move.